think one of the biggest gifts, one of the biggest even lessons I've learned in this life is that understanding that there's no right or wrong, there's no black and white, there is nuance. Life is just full of different shades, it's full of different nuances, it's full of contradictions, it's full of paradox. And the more you develop capacity to hold paradox and hold the contradiction of what you're experiencing. Example, I want this, this is the life I want, but I'm stuck over here. And that takes capacity, that takes patience, because if you approach everything you're experiencing, the struggle, the challenge, the road bump, the stuckness, even as a problem that needs fixing, and you force your way, you try harder, you push harder, you just do more, you plan more, you think some more, thinking that's how you solve the problem, often that's just how you're digging an even deeper place to be stuck in. That's how you're actually blocking yourself, because I can't speak for you who are watching, but what I know is that for high functioning women, highly capable women, and the pattern I know this in myself again and again and again, is that the more I try to control the outcome, the more I try to prevent challenges, the more I try to get it right, the more I will get it wrong. Because life was bringing me back to square one, because life was like, you haven't learned your lesson. Back to the beginning. And as I say that, I kind of getting goosebumps, because that's what my body tells. It's true. In previous videos, every time I get goosebumps, and even with coaching calls, I know it's like my body responding to something that feels true. And I need to remind myself of often. And every time it was, back again, again. You need to learn this in order, if you want to get here, it's also important how you get over there. So if you're getting there the wrong way, it kind of prevents you, life, God, universe, to get there in a way that you're destroying yourself, you're abandoning yourself, you're kind of missing the whole point. So it brings you back. And man, that's frustrating. But that's exactly the medicine we need to taste, we need to receive. So we can see, well, actually, if we want to use that wrong, I never use the word wrong, for the same reason I started this video with. There's nuance. There is no wrong or right. Potentially everything you experience in life up until this point, if you're alive, if you're still here, it's been right. You've learned your lessons. That's what I believe. That's what I carry within me. That's how I live and lead my life and every decision. But if we want to use, just for the sake of clarity and convenience, even I kept getting it wrong because I was trying so hard to get it right. And so life was like, this isn't the way. This isn't the way. Because it also aligned with what my spirit, my soul, what I'm here for. What I'm here for is a life that feels softer, that feels freer, that feels richer, that feels abundant, that feels bigger, without the cost of strain on my body, strain on my nervous system, isolation from doing it all alone because I'm afraid to ask, I'm afraid to be a burden. I'm saying enough of that. I'm welcoming, I'm opening toward a life that feels softer, because I am softer, because my body feels softer. Over here, we're bringing back soft shoulders, unclenched jaws, and softer hips, juicier hips, because I want life to feel juicier. I want to feel juicier, more vibrant, softer, freer, agile, lighter in my body and in my business and in my life and in every area of my life, including relationships, including what I am building. And if you've been watching my videos, you know I shared about the last pivot I made in my business, and since May, how I've locked in on just two platforms, YouTube and Threads, and just kind of forced myself not to pivot again. And here's the nuance. I've shared in previous videos that I've noticed how every time I chose to pivot my business, even before going all in on building my own thing when I was working in corporate, every time I quit a job when I didn't get what I wanted, or I didn't feel it was leading me where I wanted to go. Every time I quit, every time I pivoted, there was a real reason, a reasonable reason. I was actually following an internal hunch. And I'm so glad I had zero regrets. I'm so glad I pivoted that infinite amount of times. Part one. Part two, also, I recognize that, especially in my own business, where all my self limiting beliefs came up to the surface and rushed, like, hey, we're here, we're still here, still need to work through us. That's when I started noticing something about my habit of pivoting. It wasn't just exploration and following my hunch, it was also avoidance. Because every time I pivoted, I had my highest earning month, my most successful launch, a full group of women doing a group program with me, most amount of clients, one-on-one clients. So every time there was like a breakthrough into more visibility, more income, more. So that was an upper limit problem. That was a self-limiting thing. So what I hold within how I'm piecing this together is okay. I'm grateful for every pivot because I needed to learn what I needed to learn each time, and I'm over here now. And now I also recognize that right now I'm exactly where I want to be. So if now I pivot again, Marina, we have a problem. We're not going to do that. So I'm forcing myself not to pivot because I recognize pivot might be exploration, might be the right thing, might be exactly what you need. I'm a huge proponent of pivoting. I was probably always will be a serial pivoter. I will always pivot when I feel the hunch. But right now, my body was like back in April, it was literally screaming for, we want to feel the relief of being locked in on one thing for as long as it needs to build, and not follow the urge to burn it down to the ground, and start over the moment it gets bigger. This time, because I say I want a bigger life, because I want a bigger life, and a bigger life for me doesn't mean, hey, I don't want to become famous. I like my privacy. I don't want huge responsibilities, a huge team, headquarters, none of that. I want, though, a business that brings me back to the lifestyle and potentially even a more spacious, more abundant lifestyle that I knew before, like after leaving corporate and before going all in on my job, on my work. Because before I had the abundance, I had the time independence, I didn't have the freedom that I wanted. And freedom is my number one value. So I was like, all right, for a while, if for however long it takes, I'm willing to sacrifice more income, more money independence, more financial abundance, if that eventually will lead to more freedom, because I know that This is what I believe. When you're following your core values, your why, your deeper why, everything will fall into place. So I'm pursuing more freedom, more time freedom. That's the main reason I left corporate. I wanted to be able to take a vacation whenever I needed for however long I needed and just catch a flight whenever I feel like catching a flight. Of course, to do that, you need both financial abundance, financial freedom, and time freedom. So now I'm at the point where I know time freedom. I know there are many flavors of freedom. I know where I want to be, and I want to go back to that financial abundance and financial freedom, but in my own way. I hope that made sense. The whole journey, the whole thinking out loud made sense for you. I want freedom, I want to experience freedom in all its beautiful nuances and variations. So that's the main reason I left. And I want to, the bigger life to me means building a life I feel spacious in, where I feel I can take up more space. I feel I can follow my hunches and feel extremely supported. There's no need to panic. There's no need to worry. I know it's part of the human nature. Well, there will always be something that we overthink about, we worry about, but not the tightness, the contraction from the early stages of building something new. You experience there are a lot of hurdles, challenges. There's also attachment you're still working through and freeing yourself from. There's also grieving phase. There's so much when you are starting over, when you are reinventing your life, when it feels like you are back to square one, even if you're not, because you have a ton of experience, a ton of credentials, a ton of proof and evidence. But it feels like you are in some way back to square one. So all of that to say, I wish more of us, I wish the focus of our work, of inner work, focused more and more onto holding the nuance for every season you're in. Because I could easily look at the previous choices I made and every pivot I made right before my business what I was about to get bigger, and see at that choice as a failure, as I got it wrong. I could have grown faster. Instead, I chose to start over. Instead, I chose to burn everything to the ground and make things harder for myself. I could look at that way, or I could look at that knowing if I let it grow, eventually I would have gotten to a place that wasn't my thing. I knew something was off. So I'm grateful that I burned it down before it built too long, too much, too soon, for me to actually calibrate the early beginnings, the early stages, how you set up your soil, how you nurture it. Like the foundation is precious to me, it's sacred to me. So I'd rather spend more time here, quote unquote, get it right at the early stages rather than trying to fix or keep pivoting on a foundation that doesn't fit later on. So I am holding the nuance of that many pivots every time I made that choice. And I invite you to do the same, because if you're still watching, you know what, you're a pivoter, probably like me. What comes to mind if you ever watched Friends, the TV show, when they're moving the couch and there's Ross. There's also this famous meme, if I can find it, I will add it on the screen, where he said, pivot, pivot. That's such I feel like women in the space, in the coaching space, personal development space, we're so familiar with pivoting. And I welcome that because often serial pivoters, how I like to call us, we're the people that outgrow chapters, seasons, identities, beliefs, conditioning the fastest. We're fast. So you just outgrown the past season and just built your own thing that you already feel you're on to the next one. You're already ready for what's next. And that is a blessing. And that sometimes it's like, man, it feels like you make things so much harder for yourself. But hey, I think that's the differentiator or the common denominator for so many ambitious, purpose driven women. You, you're fast, babe. You're fast. You go fast. You grow things. You're ready to build the next thing, and you're not afraid. You're not afraid to bet on yourself. You're not afraid to take that leap. You're not afraid to make that choice, even if everybody around you tells you it's not safe, doesn't make sense, it's not logical, it's not the choice that makes the most logical sense on paper, but something more valuable than paper. Your body, your heart, your spirit, your hunch, your gut is telling you, hey, we want to go here. Even if everybody's saying it makes more sense go this way, you're going that way. And I'm taking your hand and I'm saying, let's go, let's go. I've been doing that my whole life and I have zero regrets. I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives. Like this is my, I don't know, 10th life that I'm starting. And that's, I think, what makes life feel richer for me as well. I would get bored very easily. One thing for the rest of my life, I think when you are growth oriented, purpose driven, it's your job to constantly make room for yourself as you grow. You need more room. You need more room, more space for yourself, for how much experience you're bringing with you, for how much wisdom you're carrying, for how many lessons, how many skills, how much it's coming with you. The good thing that you're carrying, not the one you need to let go of, not the things you've outgrown, but all the things that make you richer and your life richer and the life that of the people you touch and engage with, touch meaning that you come into contact with, richer. I think that makes it worth it. It's just worth it. The challenge that comes from being kind of feeling like you're constantly being on the move, to me, it makes me feel alive. And maybe, I don't know, I'm 40 right now, approaching 41 in a few months. I don't know if with age, maturing, getting older, that will change. But inside, I feel like a 20-year-old. I feel like a teenager. I still have that spirit. I still have that. Sometimes I think, I don't know if this is just me or if it's weird. When people ask me how old I am, I have to think about it because it's a number that it doesn't I don't know, it doesn't represent who I am. I don't think about it. So when some people ask me, I have to think about it before I answer. I need to take 5 seconds. Some people look at me weird, like, girl, you don't know how old you are. I don't. I have to think about it. And I think that's beautiful because inside, I feel I had all the time in the world. I read a post from Gary Vee a few days ago, and he said, and I reposted this, if you're 40, you're a baby. That's how I feel. I feel like a baby with a lot of wisdom, with a lot of experience. How great is that? How beautiful is that to be a baby, to have the, oh my gosh, the curiosity, the purpose driven, the fire, the energy of a little child, of a little kid, the excitement. That's the word I was looking for. The excitement of a little kid with the maturity, the experience, the groundedness, the calm of a wise woman in her 40s, which is a glorious age, by the way. If you're already in your 40s, shout out to you. Let me know below. If you're entering your 40s, oh my gosh, the best is yet to come. Wow, what a great life. What a grand life. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are days where, like, what am I even doing? Is this gonna work out? There are days where the doubt is loud, but the wisdom, the there's something greater. There is something inside my heart. The energy that's moving here, it's undeniable. It's so crystal clear. I have no other option that follow what feels reckless to others, that trust it. I have no, it's so clear. And I feel into it. When I tap into it, it's so clear, so abundant within me. Like 99% of the blood, the energy that's flowing here, it's coherent. It's just go. It's just, that's the way. And yet, nuance, back to the point, there is sometimes, some days, it's 80% what are we doing? But the beautiful thing is that as I get older and as you do more work on yourself, the lifespan of that moment where the voice of doubt, of fear gets bigger for a moment, it's shorter and shorter. It's just a moment. And you know it's going to end fast. It's going to end soon. You know it. So even while you are experiencing that moment, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week, maybe it's that period of the month where you feel full of fear, full of doubt, full of, I'm not sure, overthinking, anxiety, just, all those things. Even while you're experiencing that, you know it's going to pass because you've been there many times and you've noticed that it gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and you go back to your calm, peaceful, excited center faster and faster and faster. And I feel so blessed to be at this stage. I know that as long as I will be alive, there will always be the voice of fear. That's how actually I found peace, not by trying to eliminate the flaws, whatever. It's not even flaws. We are biologically wired to feel fear, the doubt, the overthinking, the things that come with the package. If they will be transmuted, resolve, evolve, great. But I'm not attached anymore to become immaculately fixed, to become quote unquote perfect. I couldn't care less. I want to show up alive, honest, authentic, and bring everything I have on the table because I know that this unique cocktail of how we are built, each of us, each and every one of us individually, is actually our asset. So when we try to polish the edges, smooth the surface too much, we're losing. We're losing the power. We're losing the voice. We're losing what makes us unique. We're losing the nuance. What a full circle moment. So here's to us Here's to holding more nuance because that what makes us feel more whole and complete and at peace. And here's to this wild journey of reinvention, even when evidence and everyone else will point to the right as the logical choice. You are choosing what makes you feel alive. You're choosing freedom. You're choosing fulfillment. You want a life with more option, more freedom, more fulfillment, and you are willing to do what it takes to show up, to be more seen, to do the scary thing. And I applaud you for that. Thank you so much for watching. If you don't know, my name is Marina. I make videos on here every day to remind you that whatever you're after, whatever the life that is calling you, is just one leap of courage away. And I hope you take it. Y'all, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching.